is 10:02. Start our meeting. Welcome attendees to the PVL board meeting. Before the meeting begins, short video will be played.
Welcome to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting. When the meeting begins momentarily, the chair will take a roll call, explain any specific rules for this particular board, and then move to public comment. The name of the board member will appear on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For instance, this is board member Y, and this is board member E. Public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. You can indicate that you are ready to testify by clicking on the raise hand button being circled by the mouse on your screen now. At the appropriate time, the board will recognize you to unmute your mic as shown here. Again, public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. Public attendees will not be able to unmute their microphone until recognized by the board. Public attendees who are recognized to testify will be asked to identify themselves by name and their affiliated organization if applicable. Please mute your microphone when you are finished speaking as a courtesy to others and members of the board. Public attendees will not be able to unmute themselves after the testimony is completed unless recognized again after raising their hand. At some point during the meeting, the board may choose to move into executive session. When the board moves into executive session, the board members' microphones and video feeds will be turned off, and a similar screen as you see now will be displayed. When the board returns from executive session, their microphones will be turned on as well as their video cameras. Welcome again to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting. At this time, the chair will call the meeting to order and take a roll call, as well as explain any additional rules that may be specific to this board.
Okay, Mr. Tony Lau, the Vice Chair, will read additional information on the internet and video access.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. You will be asked to enter your name. The board requests that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You will also be asked for an email address. You may fill in this field with any entry in an email format. Your microphone will automatically be muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about that agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking. On request, your Zoom video or similar on-camera option will be enabled to allow you to be visible to board members and other meeting participants while presenting oral testimony. Please turn off your camera after you conclude your testimony. It is the individual testifier's responsibility to ensure that they have the video and internet capabilities to successfully stream or remotely testify. The board maintains the authority to remove and block individuals who willfully disrupt or compromise the conduct of the meeting. For phone access, if you cannot gain internet access, you may get audio-only access by calling the phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you will be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to either enter your panelist number or wait to be admitted into the meeting. You will not have a panelist number, so please wait until you're admitted into the meeting. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, You may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 5 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued on a specified date and time. This information will be provided on the board's website at https://bbl/boards/engineer/board-meeting-schedule. Instructions to attend Hawaii virtual board meetings may be found on it.
Okay, now I'll be taking a roll call to establish a quorum. Ryan Fujiwara. Here. Dan Hiroka. Here. Ale Ninaba. Here. Jay Ishibashi. Here. Kevin Katayama. Here. Howard Lau. Here. Tony Lau.
Here.
Ethan Payne. Here. Janet Primiano.
Here.
John Takitani. Here. Roberto Yumo. Here. Nancy Cassandro, Joy Kurokawa, and Jonathan Lucas are excused. So seeing we have a quorum, we call the meeting to order at 10:09 a.m. So agenda item number 2, Chair's announcement. We want to welcome John Takitani, public member from Maui. Welcome, John. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, sure.
Introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm John Pakitani from Maui, project manager with Pacific Pipe on Maui. We specialize in the distribution of civil utilities, water, sewer, drain. I'm honored to be here and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, John. So agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes of the August 8th, 2024 meeting. Are there any public comments or board discussions of open session meeting minutes of August 8th, 2024?
Thank you, Chair. This is Johnny. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Thank you, Johnny.
And just as a note, there's no executive session minutes for the August 8th meeting because the board didn't go into executive session.
Any comments from the board?
Approve, Howard Lau.
Second,
Second.
Ethan Pang, second. Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, agenda item number 4, new business. So we're gonna discuss and have a decision-making process about the engineering experience permitted interaction group, PIG. So, permitted interaction group, PIG, is authorized by the state, authorized by Hawaii Revised Statutes, ARS 92-2.5B. PIGs may be formed by state boards to investigate specified issues outside of regularly scheduled board meetings under certain conditions. At this third and final meeting, the board will receive public testimony and discuss and vote as applicable on the report given orally by the engineering experience PIG at the board's August 8th, 2024 meeting. Mr. Lau, who is the chair of the PIG group, will provide a brief summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a refresher. The Engineering Experience PIG was formed at the board's June 22nd, 2023 meeting. PIG members, there were 5 of us, consisting of Dan Hirota, the surveyor in civil, Kevin Katayama, Mechanical and Fire Protection, Howard Lau, Structural, Nathan Pang, Electrical, and myself, Tony Lau, Civil. At its June 22nd, 2023 meeting, the board tasked the PIG with the following investigation. 1. Research other state regulations to verify whether they recognize only one type of experience to qualify for a PE licensure. 2. Research other state regulations to verify whether they issue a conditional license for government employees. 3. Have further discussion with counties and other applicable government departments regarding their qualifications for plan reviewers. And 4. Provide recommendations to the board and other stakeholders regarding the experience requirements for licensure and applicants submitting only government experience or one type of experience qualified for licensure. The board's investigative process, including local and national research and consulting with relevant stakeholders, is detailed in the PIG report. The PIG's recommendations based on the investigation and research begin on page 3 of the report. It's also available for public access on the board's website. Mahalo again to the PIG consultants who participated in the process. The City and County of Honolulu Department of Planning and Permitting, or DPP, County of Hawaii Planning Department, County of Kauai Public Works Department, County of Maui Department of Public Works, Hawaii Department of Transportation, the Honolulu Board of Water Supply, the University of Hawaii at Manoa Engineering Department, the American Public Works Association Hawaii Chapter, the American Society of Civil Engineers Hawaii Section, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers Hawaii Section, the American Council of Engineering Companies of Hawaii, the Structural Engineers Association of Hawaii, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers Hawaii Section, the Society of Fire Protection, the American Institute of Architects Hawaii. To summarize, the PIG recommends the board take the following action. 1. Support an administrative rule of HAR 16-115 to allow for decoupling of the PA exam, noting that the board did already move to support the position along with decoupling of the PS and LARE exams at its August 8th, 2024 meeting. 2. Encourage state and county agencies to consider several options detailed in the report for non-licensed engineering positions which do not currently provide qualifying lawful experience, noting that the board does not have the authority to implement any of these changes since they would be at the county level. 3. Conduct outgoing outreach to the public regarding PE licensure requirements. 4. Maintain its position of opposition to House Bill 1758 from the 2024 legislative session. 5. Consider a revision of HAR 16-115-39, clarify acceptable lawful experience. And 6. Consider creation of a limited and temporary license type if all other recommendations are rejected. No other option exists for addressing legislative proposals like House Bill 1758, which seek to amend the board's HRS regarding experience qualifications for PE licensure.
Thank you, Mr. Lau. Are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Okay.
The board received 3 written testimony, one from ASME, one from an individual representing just himself, and one from ACC Hawaii. So for ASME, I noticed that we do have Able Sue, and I'm not sure if he wanted to provide comments, or I can read the written comments and then we have copies to the board. That will be for the Able, if you can hear us, or a representative from ASME, if you would like to share comments, you may. Otherwise, I can also read the written comments you provided to the board via email.
I think you can read those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's going around. I'm pleased the board is taking a copy. But on behalf of ASME, we received this written testimony. There have been a few comments from some licensed engineers regarding the PIG report on the recommendations for board consideration. On the recommendation for decoupling, we know the decoupling is a positive change to your plans and consistent with other jurisdictions and professions. For the observations regarding white government agencies, specifically on the point of eliminating the PE licensure requirement for supervisory level positions, they received a note that they believe this happens frequently at government agencies, but one of their members commented asking if it makes sense to have a non-licensed PE supervised licensed. And then on the point of legislation, specifically for HER revisions of lawful experience with code review, white paper, FAQs, and provision for plan review, they said one PE measure mentioned that it is asking if it would make sense to explicitly state how much of code review could count towards experience. For example, up to 50% of code compliance review accounts for lawful experience to be considered. And another one of their licensed members expressed that they would support 100% plan review to qualify for license because such individuals should already have a BSc, pass the PE exam, and that is all they do, that being code compliance review. And then the last comment was, again, under the legislation recommendation, specifically regarding proposed language for a limited and temporary license type. One of their licensed members commented that they didn't see if this would help with DPP's predicament since DPP does not have a shortage of licensed engineers, but a shortage of engineers in them. Also, this individual expressed that the board would need to take into consideration that fully licensed engineers are not disadvantaged because of this recommendation. Thank you. ASME. And then the second written testimony that the board received was from an individual, Richard First. This is also being distributed to the board. I don't think that there's a this is him as an individual. Richard First did participate as a PIC consultant on behalf of AIA Hawaii, the Architects Association. But he wants to specifically note that this feedback that will be written and submitted is his own personal opinion and should not reflect recommendations from AIA Hawaii or any other organization. So he writes, for the recommendation on decoupling, I am in favor of decoupling eligibility for taking the PE exam from license eligibility. This is consistent with the way that the ARE and architect, which is the architect licensure exam and architect licensure are structured. For recommendations for state and county agencies, the point of rotating workers to allow for more diversity of experience. Richard states, I am in favor of this approach as the main way to get municipal plan review employees the depth and diversity of experience that could qualify them for professional engineering licensure. On the point for eliminating PE license requirement for supervisory positions, he states he is not in favor of this approach since there are certain instances where high-level decision-making may require a better understanding of engineering principles and design processes. On the point of ICC certification as the goal of municipal plan examiners, Richard states, I am in favor of this approach for the majority of plan examiners since the primary goal of these positions is to review documents for conformance with the applicable codes. This is consistent with the information cited in the PIG report from other West Coast counties. For the recommendation on outreach, he states, I am in favor of public outreach regarding PE licensure requirements. I believe it is especially important to provide clear, concise guidelines for potential PE licensure candidates. These guidelines should be comprehensive and easily accessible via the state's DCCA website. For recommendations regarding legislation on HB 1758 or similar, he states, I agree with the PIG's recommendation that the board maintain its position in opposition to HB 1758 for health, safety, and welfare reasons. Regarding HAR revisions of lawful experience for code review, He says, while I agree that the board should clarify that compliance review plans may be accepted for some of the required minimal years of local experience, I believe that the proposed language is not clear enough to properly manage licensure candidates' expectations. I am admittedly not familiar with how PE candidates are required to track their work experience. However, I believe the NCAR, which is the National Council of Architect Registration Board, AXP, which is an experience program, provides a clear and reasonable way to do so, which could be mimicked in the engineering classifications. As you are likely aware, the current AXP process requires candidates to track their hours in 6 different experience categories: practice management, project management, programming and analysis, project planning and design, project development and documentation, and construction and evaluation. Each category has different hours required, and the candidate's AXP supervisor is required to assist the candidate in obtaining work experience appropriate for each category in the required amounts. Importantly, the program allows for a maximum of 50% of the required hours to be completed outside the work setting of employment in the office of a licensed architect. This explicitly clear set of requirements helps AXP candidates to understand in advance the requirements that they need to complete their AXP internships. I recommend the board consider establishing requirements that are equally clear. Finally, on the point recommendation for a temporary limited license classification, he states, well, I think this is an interesting idea. I'm not sure whether it actually provides substantial benefits over the recommendation that municipalities make ICC certification the goal of plan examiners. Without a specific and well-defined means to transition from limited PE license to full unrestricted license, the effort to craft and implement legislative changes may not be worth the effort for what could be more readily obtained by the various agencies moving towards ICC certification for plan examiners. He says, thank you for the opportunity to provide input. And lastly, the board received written testimony from ACEC-PVL. I do see that we have Charles Drury on. Charles, I don't know if you wanted to share, or we have the written copy that will also be distributed to the board.
Yeah, thanks. Aloha board. First, I just want to apologize that our testimony did come this morning. So I'm sure you folks didn't have a chance to digest it. But yes, if you could just read the testimony, I am available for questions if you guys have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. So the written testimony submitted by ACEC Hawaii chapter. Okay, dear ISLA board, the American Council of Engineering Companies of Hawaii, ACECH, is the state's only nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the business climate and promoting the professional environment of engineers, surveyors, and industry specialists. ACECH represents a roster of 71 member firms employing over 2,300 employees throughout Hawaii. ACECH is an advocate for laws and policy that protect, enhance, and promote the business interests of private engineering companies in Hawaii. ACECH participated in the Permitted Interaction Group, or PIG, formed in response to House Bill 1758 of the 2023 legislative session. We understand the City and County of Honolulu Department of Planning and Permitting, the DPP, strongly supported legislation that would amend quote-unquote lawful experience in engineering work to include code compliance review of plans for construction applicable to the specific engineering field. In written testimony from the 2023 legislative session, and I believe these references are to the 2024 legislative session with HB 1758, DPP stated that professional engineer licensure is a requirement to be promoted to a supervisory engineering position. It is our understanding that the code compliance review of plans, which is part of the city's building permit review process, is conducted by the title Plans Examining Engineer. This is a quote class specification and quote by the City and County of Honolulu Department of Human Resources, and this position requires the equivalent to graduation from an accredited 4-year college or university with a bachelor's degree in an engineering specialty. According to the class specification, promotion to the title Plan Examining Engineer 4 requires a valid license as a professional civil or structural engineer in the state of Hawaii as a minimum qualification. Therefore, ACECH recognizes that under these class specifications, newly graduated engineering students are the most obvious candidates for these positions. ACECH also recognizes that without a path to licensure, these engineering graduates will be limited in their ability to advance their career within DPP. ACECH further recognizes the need to retain and recruit qualified individuals to perform code compliance review plans, efficiently process building permit applications. All things considered, ACCH's mission is to advocate for laws and policy that protect, enhance, and promote the business interests of private engineering companies in Hawaii. ACCH was aware of the bills introduced in the 2023 legislative session and opted not to provide testimony on the matter. ACCH recognizes the authority of the ISLA Board's Engineering Committee, which means the members of the ISLA Board that are professional engineers who are given the authority to review a person's qualifications for licensure by examination and to make recommendations to the board, and therefore, at that time, ACCH did not offer an opinion on the proposed changes. ACCH has reviewed the findings of the draft PIC report prepared by the ISLA Board and the findings that they're quoting from the report, quote, majority of states do not consider 100% plan review to qualify for the total experience requirements for PE licensure, end quote, is of particular interest and importance to ACCH. Licensed professional engineers are responsible to perform services to what is referred to as the standard of care. The standard of care is a legal term and is basically the level of care, knowledge, and expertise that a reasonably careful professional engineer would have used in similar circumstances. In keeping with ACCH's mission to advocate for laws that protect the business interests of our member firms, based on the findings of the PIC that the majority of the other states would not accept 100% plan review, ACCH is concerned that the proposed changes to the law will create a situation that does not meet the current standard of care. ACCH is in favor of finding a solution to the recruitment, retention, and advancement challenges that DPP is experiencing, and ACCH is willing to help in finding a solution. However, ACCH opposes any action that will or could lower the quality or standard by which we measure our engineers. ACCH continues to recognize the authority of the ISLA Board in determining what is acceptable experience and supports whatever the final decision by the board is. Respectfully submitted by the American Council of Engineers of Hawaii. And I believe, Charles, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the references to the 2023 session were for the 2024 session, but if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak for it.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. And that is all the written testimony that the board received prior to.
Okay,
Is there
discussion.
any other?
Any other public testimony? Johnny?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Are there any other board comments or discussion?
So just for the board's understanding, so the PIC report that you have in your packet, that's a basis for discussion. So the board will vote at the end of any discussion on whether to accept the recommendations that are towards the end of the report. So your options, you can accept the PIC's recommendations as they're written, or you can choose to amend any of the recommendations, add, in any way amend or reject any of the recommendations. But those are your options. So the PIC report is a starting position. And then after the board vote, whatever the board decides on, the PIC will provide the full report to the legislature as requested in December before the 2025 legislative session, and they'll update the report to reflect today's vote on the recommendations.
Motion to approve the PIC report recommendations as written.
So move, Brian. Fujiwara.
Brian Fujiwara moved. Second, Burke, you move. Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So agenda item number 4B. National Council of Examiners for Engineering and Surveying, NCES 2024 Annual Meeting Report. So board members, Howard Lau, Tony Lau, myself, along with Executive Officer Sheena Choi, represented the board at the NCES 2024 Annual Meeting in Chicago from August 13th to the 17th. Who wants to start to provide a summary.
Let me start off first. Howard Lau, structural engineer member. I attended the structural forum on Thursday, and this is a few of my takeaways from that forum. There's only roughly 15% passing rate in 2023. Many jurisdictions across the country was concerned about that low passing rate. You know, the NCAAS doesn't have any past history for this particular exam because it's a new format that was administered in April of 2024. As such, every examinee was considered a first-time examinee. You know, for those of you that are not familiar with how the structured exam is set up, it's broken up into two major parts, a breadth part and a depth part. Both portions have vertical and lateral components of testing. Breadth portion covers a wide range of structural subject matters, while the depth portion was more specific, and examinees could select either buildings or bridges. The breadth portion is offered all year long, whereas the depth portion is only offered in April and October. For the breadth portion, there was a 51% passing rate for the vertical component and 45% passing rate for the lateral component. As for the depth portion, examinees who chose the bridge vertical had a 28% passing rate, and the bridge lateral had a 48% passing rate. However, the passing rate dramatically dropped for those taking the building component of the exam. The building vertical was only 14%. The building lateral was only 16%. In 2023, the passing rate for both the building and bridge component examinees, first-time takers, was 31%, while the repeat takers was 23% for building and 26% bridges. So as you can see that 14 to 15% was a dramatic drop. The other interesting thing was the average age of PE exam takers was 30, PE exam now, whereas the average age of the SE exam takers is 5. The NCAAS reports that even with this low pass rate, October exam won't be much different from the April exam. There were a number of complaints that were received by the examinees. I'm not going to go into each one, but some of them included there wasn't enough. There was too much time taken in the pre-test questions and didn't give them time for the actual exam. Other issues, only one screen and references. So it could only be opened one at a time. Again, that's a system limiting. There was one other issue that came up. There was a mutual recognition agreement between the United States and the United Kingdom, of which Hawaii did not sign for. Other jurisdictions in the country did. What we found out at a meeting where the UK people explained their licensure requirements, they do have similarly have an education requirement. They have an experience leg that also includes a professional review and interview of the examinee, which we don't have. And third part, they have similar examinations that also included a supplementary 1.5-hour exam that focuses on conceptual design. However, the big issue was that the UK exams for structural engineers don't include any testing for lateral loads. So they don't test for seismic or wind. As such, the consensus among most of the Western Zone states is that we really can't enter into the mutual recognition agreement with the UK, as our concern for protection for life safety could be compromised without this additional testing for minimum competency. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Howard.
Okay, Tony Lau, civil engineer, I'll go next. So adding on to whatever Howard has shared, I got to opportunity to participate in the surveying forum. A couple highlights. Their give some updates on the future PLSS exam. When the PLS exam goes live, which is projected for October of 2026, the PS exam will no longer have PLSS questions. But the total number of questions on the PS exam will not be reduced. And this was shared, I think, at the interim zone meetings as well. And then the projected date of the new PS exam will be July of 2026. One thing overall, they shared that the NCES Foundation, which the board had introduced the previous year, is up and running as of March 2024. They have a roughly $380,000 budget for FY25. They are entering the 24-25 funding cycle.
Tony? Myself, I participated in the exam development seminar. So a couple of items in the exam development. There are 2 new exams coming out. One was the PLSS and the other being a mechanical engineering plumbing exam. That's scheduled to go out in June of 2028. So to get new exams supported by NCES, there has to be a 10-member boards which support this new exams to come out. So I know there's been some requests from other states for other types of exams to be implemented by NCES to be qualified for licensure. So generally, there are 2 types of exams: linear on the fly, which is you can go back and take it every time, or LFF, which is linear fixed form, which is only offered a couple of times a year. So to qualify for linear on the fly, they need at least 400 exam takers so that they can have an increased number of bank questions to offer the exam more frequently. So both exams, I guess they get the results in 7 to 10 days, which is drastically decreased from when we took the exam. I know it took ours like 4 to 6 months to get our exam graded and scored. That's it I had for the exam development side.
And I'll provide some information from the member board administrator discussion. So NCES calls the executive officer in all the other jurisdictions an MBA. So they provided several updates on their work experience verification processes and improvements to customer and board user experiences. So this was really interesting for me to learn because the board does accept the NCES council record as one of the options for verifying education, experience, exam, and/or license. And in compiling that council record, individuals will send in their experience and employment for verification by NCES. And they reported that they receive about 2,000 records for review every week. And the reviewers, who are all licensed professionals, they do reject about 50% of all the entries, and they send it back. And they're working on significant updates to their licensure verification system to create an automated license and exam verification process with a later add-on for enforcement reporting. So those updates are several years in development, but will very much help the licensure process in all the different jurisdictions, including in Hawaii. The MBAs additionally discussed NCES motions involving expungement of records. And this is an issue of concern as jurisdictions have differing records retention policies. We've started encountering that in some older applications. And then with regards to expungement, the overwhelming conclusion was that state boards actually don't have the authority to expunge records. That's a legal concern. So boards would like to leave the discretion for determining if a disciplinary action or other legal infraction is considered relevant to the practice and licensure application in their jurisdiction. So there was some motions around expungement, and they all were withdrawn just because of the legal concerns. And that's the reports.
Okay, thank you, Sheena. Moving on to Agenda item number 4C. Council of Landscape Architecture Registration Board's CLARB 2024 Annual Meeting Report. This board member Joel Kurokawa, who's under the weather today, along with Executive Officer Sheena Choi, represented the board at the CLARB's 2024 annual meeting in Buffalo, New York from September 19th to the 21st.
So to summarize, there was a lot of different sessions, but a big theme for many of those sessions is that CLARB is very involved in the international landscape of the profession. So they reported several developments with various different countries. So in countries that don't have a regulatory framework for licensure of landscape architects, CLARB has been partnered with certain other international organizations to provide resources for those countries in setting up a licensure process, enforcement, and things like that. So they're very involved on an international level, including with helping to evolve accreditation standards and increasing mobility between different states, and then also mobility between countries. There's also a lot of helpful updates on the early impact of the landscape architecture profession receiving STEM recognition. So I guess they weren't a designated STEM profession until just 2023. So they recently received that federal designation, and they provided a lot of updates on how that's been impacting the profession in terms of grant funding for research, student recruitment, all of those things, and that it's really solidifying on a national and an international scale that landscape architecture is a STEM profession. I guess it seems like it's often confused in the public as with landscaping or similar things that are not landscape architecture. They also provided some really helpful information on the development and candidate experience for the LARE, which is the Landscape Architecture Licensure Exam. And he's not here, but congratulations to Joel. He was inducted as the president of CLARB for this upcoming cycle of their board of directors. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 4D. Consideration of formation of permitted interaction group PIG to investigate the proposed NCES mapping science exam. Sheena, you want to give context?
Yeah, so just providing context, the board's been receiving some notifications by email that there's proposals by other jurisdictions to request NCES to develop a mapping science exam. I believe this is related to what Kevin shared from the annual meeting, that development of a new exam requires member board support from at least 10 member boards. So it's starting to get the questions are getting technical around the development. And so I'm just suggesting that the board vote at this meeting to form a PIG, including our 2 surveying members of the board to investigate this matter and then report back to the board. And so I know we've been talking about PIGs a lot at this meeting. So just a reminder for the board and the public who's joining us, PIGs or permitted interaction groups are authorized by HRS 92-2.5B, and PIGs may be formed by state boards to investigate specified issues outside of regularly scheduled board meetings under certain conditions. And for the public's information, these certain conditions include that the PIG process has to be recorded in the agenda of 3 board meetings. So as a refresher, at the first board meeting, which for this agenda item would be this meeting, the board would vote to establish the PIG, the members, and the scope of the investigation. At a second agendized board meeting, the PIG would provide a report. Public testimony would be solicited and received, but the board could not discuss the report at that second meeting. And then finally, at the third meeting, the public comment period is again opened and received, and then the board can discuss finally at this third meeting and take action on the report as needed. So the purpose of forming a PIG, if you choose to today, would just be to investigate the proposal to establish that NCES mapping science exam for professional surveyor licensure.
Johnny, is there any public comment?
Thank you, Joe. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Okay, thank you. Any board discussion?
How many members are you talking?
It can be anything less up to less than quorum, so 5 members maximum. And then recommending that I at least have you and Alan. But also for pigs, you can add other members from the public.
What about consultants? Those have to
And
be
then
decided now,
And
or
then the pig, if you want to consult with subject matter experts, that can be decided outside of the board meeting.
those don't have to be approved by the board?
The pig authority is to form the final report, though.
Can you repeat the purpose for the pig? Sorry.
The purpose for this pig would be to investigate the proposal to establish a NCES mapping science exam for professional surveyor licensure.
Why would the board be involved in exam?
The board wouldn't be involved in exam development, but
Yeah.
I believe there's been inquiries asking for the board support. So the pig would investigate if there's merit for the board to support or not, and to provide more information to the board
Yeah.
on what exactly is the mapping science exam, what does it involve, things like that.
Another additional.
The way I read it, I thought we were involved.
No, yeah, the board is not involved in any way in exams other than the state exam for surveyors and the state exam for landscape architects, which this is not covering.
Thank you.
So Christopher, does it have to change or clarify the purpose of the pig? If there's gonna, because you don't want to have any understanding of what the pig is investigating.
No, I mean, I think the notice provided in the agenda is sufficient and then clarified by what was just discussed in the meeting. I think that's all sufficient to explain what the pig would be for.
That's-
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just that other people may interpret the proposal to establish, meaning that you guys are going to establish.
Oh,
I think it's NCES established exam. NCES does not have a mapping science exam yet. So it's whether we support NCES to establish a mapping science exam.
So I guess if we write it out, we can rephrase it to be to investigate the proposal to NCES to establish a mapping science exam.
Is there a minimum number?
One. Minimum one, maximum five. So if you would like to, then you would have to appoint a number of people to the pig, and then we would need to vote to establish the pig with that scope, unless you want to amend the wording of the scope further.
A question, so this would add an additional module besides the FSPS, they would have this mapping and then the state exam.
So I'm actually not clear, and that's what the
That's
pig
what-
would be investigating, yeah, what exactly that looks like. If it changes anything to licensure in Hawaii.
Yeah, I believe they're creating this exam in hopes of, drawing in and testing some of these, the GIS and the technical survey people. And that would be a question for the pig, I guess, is if we are trying to develop a new license category, I guess as part of that, or to include this exam as part of the licensure path for surveyors.
Yeah, and that would be for the pig investigation.
That's to be investigated, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Christopher, the purpose is broad enough to encompass everything that
I
is.
think so. I mean, because when you create a pig, I mean, you don't have to specify
Right.
kind of so
Okay,
granularly, yeah.
Yeah, but it just has to be broad enough.
Yeah.
So it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think no one wants to appoint you guys to the pig.
So we'll still appoint.
Yeah, I think we're automatically on.
Appoint or volunteer.
Volunteer, no one wants to
How about
volunteer.
volunteer?
You do, so we do need a motion to form the pig with the X members as pig members.
So do you volunteer?
Yeah, I move that Alan and I are on the pig, and if anybody else wants to join us, they're welcome.
Okay, so I'll second that.
Oh, Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none,
Volunteers.
seeing none.
So the motion, just to clarify, by Dan, seconded by Alan, is to establish this PIG to investigate the proposal to NCES to establish a mapping science exam for professional surveyor licensure.
Members Dan and Alan.
Members Dan and Alan.
All those in favor? Yeah.
Thank you, Dan and Alan.
So agenda item number 5, scope of practice. There's an email inquiry from Rihanna Hill regarding the signing and sealing of work by professional engineers and the transferring of engineer of record designation. Oh, perfect. So. It's you. Wrote, the first question is, can a professional engineer sign and seal the work of another professional engineer?
Yes, the answer.
Oh.
And then
Second question was, can the engineer of record be transferred to another OAPE?
I don't think that should be a board item. It's a legal item.
well, I actually, so there is in your laws and rules, the requirements for that. So if you, in your board packet, flip to behind the emails, we just provide a summary of laws and rules that might be relevant to these two questions. So for question number 1 about a PE signing and sealing the work of another PE, your rules 16-115-8 state that this is 16-115-8. All plans, specifications, maps, reports, surveys, and descriptions prepared by or under the supervision of a licensed professional engineer, architect, surveyor, landscape architect, submitted to public officials for approval shall be stamped with the authorized seal or stamp and authenticated as provided in section 16-115. Additionally, in your laws, so in HRS 464-14A and HER 16-115-10, there's definitions or guidelines for unlicensed activity and misconduct in the practice, and that includes plan stamping, which is sealing, stamping, or certifying any document which was not prepared by or supervised by the licensee. So we can look at those more closely, but I believe that, for mentioning that it's a legal issue, I think that your laws and
Number
rules
two.
are clear. Oh, for
I'm
number 2.
referring to number 2.
Okay. Maybe for number
The
1.
number 1, I agree with him.
If there's any.
Are there any, is there any public testimony?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Okay, thank you. Any other board discussion?
Didn't I?
Okay, and then for number 2, the only reference to something related to the engineer record or EOR in the board's laws and rules is HER 16-115-9. And that states that in the event a licensed professional engineer, architect, or landscape architect whose seal or stamp and signature appear in connection with the statement in subsection B or C concerning observation of construction has been removed, replaced, or is otherwise unable to discharge the licensee's duty, the licensed paraphrasing professional shall so notify the appropriate public officials in writing within 15 days. The notification shall include, and there's the requirements for what needs to be included. So I believe your rules are all here, pretty clear on that. That's the only reference to something involving an engineer of record. And I believe that individuals should reference other state and county vacancies regarding transfer of engineer of record. Is that what you're referring to, Bert?
It's very similar to ours. Let's say I'm the AOR project. And I wanted to ask for Brian. I'm not sure Brian will accept it. So there's a legal thing between the two of us. If it can be explained clearly that he will take everything, responsibility. That's between the two of us. I'm not waiting for the board to tell me what to do.
Okay, I see what you.
Yeah, you don't want to get involved. I don't know, Chris, what do you say?
No, I don't have anything to add to that. I think, actually, I think you laid that out pretty, clearly easy to
Yeah,
understand.
it's-
Because I guess it's also up to the project owner.
Correct,
Right.
yeah, that's why it's all legal.
Your laws and rules are silent on this, aside from that one provision in 16-115-9.
Right from, let's see,
If they're unable to discharge
yeah.
or remove or replace, they have to notify. Yeah, so the requirement is just for the notification, but your laws and rules don't state anything else about transfer of view.
Application, what to respond to her?
No, I think unless there's anything else to add.
Any further discussions on this matter? Seeing none. Agenda item number 5B, email inquiry from ID Lisa Shiba regarding the clarification of lawful functions and licensed the way architects may use.
The questions because she clarified on the first page, but I think her questions are actually on the second page. In the last three paragraphs, so the first question is in the context of HR chapter 464-41B activity. And I think she means 464-4A1B and A2B. Is there any difference between what a licensed architect versus licensed engineer is lawfully able to do in the observation of a licensed engineer contractor? If there is a difference in what architects versus engineers are limited to in the state's Public Works Division. And then if there's no difference between what a licensed architect versus licensed engineer is able to lawfully do in the observation of a licensed engineer who stamps the specifications for projects pertaining to new construction, renovation, repairs, and alterations to existing structures. So I believe that this individual is referencing in your HRS 464-1, the definitions of an architect and professional engineer, and specifically 464-4A1B and A2B. So I don't think she's asking the difference between what an architect and an engineer can do generally, but specifically 464-4 lays out some exemptions for public works. I'm just looking at it, the purpose of 464-4 seems to require that a licensed professional engineer or architect or landscape architect designated by the state observe public work projects involving alteration, new construction, or maintenance work. The intent of this section, I believe, seems to provide for exemptions specifically for projects. I think it would be incumbent upon the state to determine the proper design professional to be in observation of public works projects. But I'm not familiar with how the Public Works Department do their construction observation.
Their discussions.
Comments on that one? Otherwise, I will respond to the Inquirer. We heard it 464-4 and that the only thing that's mandated by our statute is that a licensed professional engineer or architect or landscape architect as designated by the state. So it's would be incumbent on the state to be determined which licensed professional to be in occupation of the construction. Is that okay?
Okay. Agenda item number 6, applications. 6A, ratification list. Ready public testimony to that? Agenda item number 6A.
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Motion to approve the ratification list as attached.
So moved, Tony Lau.
Second, Howard Law.
Any nays, recusals, or abstention? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Agenda item number 6B, recommendations from the following application review committee. Attached agenda. Any public testimony?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Okay, motion to approve the application review committee recommendation lists.
So moved, Tony Lau.
Second, Howard Law.
Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to move into executive session in accordance to HRS 93-4, 22-5A1 and 4. To consider and evaluate personal information relating to individuals applying for licensure and to consult the board's attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. Or the vote in open session. A motion to go to executive session.
I move that we go into executive session. Brian?
Fujiwara moved. Any second?
Second, Janet.
Second. Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So, Courtney's gonna move us into executive session. And does the camera face that way? Both ways.
So in the executive session, the board discussed with its attorney regarding the confidential applications of engineer applicants listed in agenda item 6C. Are there any public testimony?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone requesting to provide testimony.
Thank you, Granny. So engineers, James Begley. Is there a motion for his application?
Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Item number 2, Joe Cameron. Is there a motion for his application?
Move to approve. Howard Lau.
Howard Lau move to approve. Any second?
Tony Lau, second.
Tony Lau second. Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Travis Kim, is there a motion for his application?
Move to approve. Howard Lau.
Second.
Second, Tony Lau.
Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Number 4, Thomas Raveney. Is there a motion for his?
To approve.
Second.
Second, Tony Lau.
Nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Michael Schweitzer, any motion?
Move to approve. Howard Lau.
Second, Tony Lau.
Any nays, recusals, or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, agenda item number 7, executive officers report. Ms. Choi?
Evan, so this is on the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, or NCARB's, updated Mutual Recognition Agreement, or MRA, with Australia and New Zealand, which is going into effect on November 6, 2024. So I'm just reporting that NCARB recently updated its MRA with those two countries to allow for reciprocal licensure between the US and those two countries. Very interesting. However, individuals who are applying for Hawaii are advised that while Hawaii is a member board of NCARB, Hawaii is not a signatory to the MRA with Australia and New Zealand. So the MRA has no effect on current or future applicants to Hawaii for architect licensure at this time. And this is also a reminder that pursuant to HAR 16-115-47D1 and 16-115-4054B1, applicants who hold degrees from foreign jurisdictions are required to have their foreign education evaluated by NCARB's Education Evaluation Services and found equivalent to an accredited degree if they want the board to consider their education for licensure purposes. If they choose not to have their degree evaluated, or if the degree is evaluated and found not equivalent, then they still can apply for licensure via the board's no degree pathway to licensure and meet all the additional requirements, including 11 years of lawful experience that's verified by a licensed architect supervisor. More information can be found on the instructions on the application page that's available online. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes our meeting. Our next meeting is December 12th, 2024, 10 o'clock here in this conference room. Meeting is adjourned 1:26. Thank you, everyone.
We're still on.
Meeting.